All right, we're live. We got a lot to talk about. Such little time. 22 days away from the draft. That's 3 weeks and 1 day. Business is picking up. Dialogue's picking up. People are getting antsy. People are getting upset. Some people are saying some crazy things. Some people are saying some interesting things. But it's a good time to follow this team. It's a good time to follow the league. And it's a good time for you to join the locker room. Number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2 Central on Sports Radio 610 and the Odyssey app. Cole Thompson going to come through today. We're going to talk a little bit about this CJ Stroud situation. You can comment up there. If it's topical, then we'll get right to it. If it's not, but it's interesting, we'll get to it a little bit later on. And I appreciate all of you for coming through. Let's start with the news that CJ Stroud was in town, visited with the Texans. Many believe that he is the favorite to go to Carolina. Many others are saying that they believe it's going to be Bryce Young. I think most recently, Chris Mortensen said it. Michael Lombardi's been saying it as well. And we've been talking a lot about the CJ Stroud versus Bryce Young debate. And I've been a part of it. I've talked about it a lot. And as fun as that conversation is to have at this point, and maybe this is just kind of me seeing the light, it really doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter where the Texans sit on this. At least from their perspective, it doesn't matter because they don't control the draft. And I'm not trying to rehash the Indianapolis thing or anything like that, but it really doesn't matter who they like at all. Doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, at this point, they should be breaking down their second best, whether it's CJ or Bryce Young, and they should be comparing that to the other guys. Because at this point, doesn't matter. If you like CJ goes one, damn, got to go with your second choice, or you got to figure something out. You like Bryce? He goes one, doesn't matter. So it's kind of unfortunate for them. Kind of sucks. But the CJ Bryce thing just doesn't matter with the Texans. Doesn't. Your guy could go. You don't have control of this. So that's just kind of where they're at. That's the situation they're in. I did hear Brandon Cooks on Adam Schefter's podcast. I clicked on that podcast just trying to, maybe see if Brandon said anything interesting. I know that, he had said in the past that he had like some sort of secrets or, he's going to put business out. So I just kind of checked to see if Schefter was going to ask him about that. And there wasn't a single Texans question in there. Matter of fact, it was kind of, I don't know what to make of that podcast. Schefter had an interesting thought that I've talked about probably a little bit too much about, if Cooks doesn't play, the Texans don't get the number one pick. I think anyone except Nick Caserio knew that. But I was very annoyed that Brandon Cooks was sitting there giggling about the Texans not getting the number one pick. Voice kind of makes me cringe a little bit at this point, Brandon Cooks, because I think he is a little bit of a fraud. I'm not saying he's a bad guy. I'm not saying that his teammates don't like him. I'm not saying I haven't enjoyed my interactions with him. I've had quite a few. I just don't think he's authentic. The reason he wanted out of town was because of Jack Easterby's departure, and he just wouldn't come out and say it. And then he left the team for a little bit, then acted like he never left the team and acted like he was just coming back. So I just think there's a little bit of a lack of authenticity, and I think he uses something that's important to me, faith. I think he uses it as a shield. And I think he uses it to justify his actions. I think on one hand, when the good's going on, he's going to quote it, and then he's going to use it to justify his actions. That's just what I think. And I also think, let's be honest, he's associated with the biggest fraud and one of the worst human beings that I've ever encountered, and many people have said, and you automatically lose points there. So just kind of makes me cringe a little bit. Let's get to a couple of the comments before Cole gets here. Frank says, why do people treat CJ like he threw for UTSA? I have no idea what the hell you mean there, Frank. I appreciate you for coming through. Subscribe, like, all that type of stuff. I don't know what that means. That seems like a straw man argument. I don't like the people say stuff, or I like specifics. So in the comments, just put specifically like who said something or whatever. Or maybe that makes sense. I have no idea, my friend. Who acts like CJ Stroud threw for UTSA? No clue. At all. Maybe there was some context in the comment that I missed. But yeah. Jose's asking, what does my gut tell me the Texans do, CJ or BY? Again, it goes back to what we originally said here, that it really doesn't matter because it's not their choice. It's Carolina's choice. But my gut tells me that things are going to fall where it's Bryce. Although I think Bryce is the better guy, and maybe Carolina comes up to that conclusion. But that's what my gut tells me. But hell, what was my gut telling me a year ago today? It's probably telling me that Aiden Hutchinson was going to go number 1. So I don't really know. Tyler says something interesting, going back to the Cooks thing. Nick is associated with Jack, so he can't be trusted. Here's my thing there, and I get it, and I've gotten really pissed off at Nick before because he said some stuff and the way in which he criticized, in which I'd heard Easterby say it before, so it kind of ticked me off a little bit. And if you're on this web stream, when he said people aren't good at their job and stuff, I'd heard Jack say that, and I'd seen the texts of Jack saying that a couple of times. I just thought it was a little bit annoying. But Nick knew Jack in a different role. Like Nick knew Jack in New England, and by the time Nick got here, Jack was at a point where he never should have been. And eventually, I don't think Nick liked him as much in that role. So I don't look at it as, Jack left. I don't look at it as weird as the Brandon Cooks thing. But I do get what you're saying. And honestly, there's I think a portion of the fan base that kind of, looks sideways at Nick for that. Frank says he already liked and subscribed. Frank, you're a good man. Appreciate you. There's a question from Logan about the edge rusher. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Got Cole coming on in a sec. JJ, what do you think the percentage Nick would go Will Anderson if Young is off the board? 8%? I don't know. I was trying to give like as good of an answer as I can. I guess maybe like 8%. Not sure. There's a Stingley sauce question. We'll get to that at the end. Myron asked the question. It's on the rundown. Myron asked the question. Myron Benson asked the question. What did you think of Lance's mock? Just to prove that I'm not making this up, I put the wild mock that broke Texans Twitter. So that is on the rundown. We'll talk about that for sure. And just keep the comments coming. Cole Thompson is here. Cole, how you doing, man?
Broke Texas Twitter is not even the right type of wording that you would have. It literally set the internet on fire. I had people from Minnesota calling me. I had people from Detroit calling me. Who the hell is this Lance Zierlein guy? Lance is a nice person, by the way. Lance is really good people.
He's one of the most respected. He's the most respected draft mind. One of the most respected draft minds in town.
He's one of the most respected draft minds.
Draft minds in the country. I mean,
yeah. I mean, when he gets brought up on national syndicated radio shows about how much his drafts are respected and how much he knows, like he's in on something. But it was funny because it wasn't just Houston. Like everyone was like, "Oh, the Houston draft was god awful," and then you hear, "Well, what the hell did he do with Detroit?" don't ever come to Detroit. Like, you're never welcome in the Motor City. Don't come to New York. We don't want you here. Like, people were like losing their mind on Twitter yesterday on this one.
Yeah, we'll get to that. I do think we'll get
It's something.
Let's start with CJ being in town. CJ Stroud visiting with the Texans. I know it's a standard thing, and they're going to visit with all the quarterbacks. So that's not really the angle I want to attack. I want to attack more so just the fact that, and I don't know if I had this revelation today during the show, but I've spent so much time the last 3+ months, arguing CJ and Bryce.
Since literally Davis Mills threw a touchdown and ruined the chance for you to pick which guy you wanted.
Exactly. And then I realized this, and I'm like, you know what? That doesn't mean crap. Because they don't even get to decide between the two. So maybe we can cross our fingers and we can say, we hope this guy falls out. So I guess it makes it a little bit of a relevant conversation, but it is kind of enlightening when you just take a step back and say, we've argued about these guys, but the reality is the Texans, they can't be having this same conversation. They have, if I'm the Texans, and I'm listing the quarterbacks and someone is QB1, it's either Bryce or CJ. To me, I would just exclude QB1 from the dialogue, and then I would be discussing QB2, 3, and 4. You know what I mean? For us, we can say it and we can say we hope he falls there, but the Texans should really be talking about it and talking about how much of a gap there is between QB2, 3, and 4 instead of having the 1 and 2 that we're talking about.
The point that I understand from Lance's mock, and I'm not saying it's 100% right, but if there is a significant drop-off in their opinion from QB1 to QB2 to QB3 to QB4, that's where that conversation gets started. But I agree with you. It's a lot where is the drop-off between a CJ Stroud, if he is not your QB1, say Bryce Young is your QB2, between him and Will Levis and Anthony Richardson? And where is that significant play to where you have that conversation? Well, if we were to move up into the draft to go get a guy like an Anthony Richardson, should he fall, is this going to be able to benefit us for the long run to where we can see success? I think no matter what, and I've said this for a while, I fell in love with CJ Stroud's tape last year. I truly thought that CJ Stroud last year showed why everyone should be high on him. And again, we brought this up last time I was on the show. Don't use the narrative of, oh, look at what this former Ohio State quarterback did. I can do the exact same thing with the Michigan quarterback outside of Tom Brady.
Do that with the Alabama quarterback.
You can do that with Alabama. You can do that with everybody. But the thing is that I fell in love with this tape last year because he was consistent as all hell. Everything that you saw, didn't matter if he was throwing the ball to Jack Smith-Njigba, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, who was the tight end that I'm blanking off of? Not Keith Stover.
The dude that went to the Jets.
Jeremy Rucker. Yeah, Jeremy Rucker.
Jeremy Rucker. Yeah.
They had a great run game. They had a stable offensive line. Everything that I saw from him translated over to another year. And yes, we can go ahead and make the argument that Marvin Harrison Jr. is a freaking stud. And last year he was QB4 on a roster that he would have been wide receiver 1 on any other roster in America. You could still say that Emi Akeba is a quality wide receiver 2 that probably would be a number 1 wide receiver on most teams in college football. Cade Stover is a number 1 tight end. You can believe all that. But the fact that he didn't diminish in any single way, his completion percentage hovered around still 71%. His passer rating led all of college football this past year. He still threw for 41 touchdowns. He still looked credible in the pocket on play design type of throws. And he never seemed to falter under pressure outside of a few drives in that Michigan game. And then he kind of made up for it on what you saw in the Georgia game. I don't have hesitation on if he is the guy at pick number 2. The question is, do you find significant drop-off between him and say their QB3 is Will Levis? Do you think that if you really do like Will Levis and you think that Levis can develop, he's a better fit for Bobby Slowick's offense, he's a guy that they believe can transcend an offense in time, more upside, more potential, especially in an AFC East where it is a juggernaut of quarterbacks, is that where you have that conversation of, well, we can take a premier pass rusher. We can take easily a guy that we know is going to be a bona fide at least playmaker from the get-go, and then risk some draft capital because we do have 2 first-round picks this next year. We do have a first-round pick. We do have 2 third-round picks. We still have a couple of draft picks early on next season as well. do you risk moving up to go get your quarterback in the future? And again, it's happened. It is going to be some growing pains. The biggest thing of a guy like Will Levis, and everyone wants to compare him to a Josh Allen. Josh Allen sucked his first year. He was freaking awful, like in every single capacity. And they don't have the weapons that you're going to have in Ohio State. But I still think that there's more upside that he likes it. I think that there's more upside with a guy like CJ Stroud there. But I will give Levis some credit. He had one of the worst offensive lines in college football this past year. He did lose his offense coordinator to the NFL. His weaponry was terrible. So I think that there's still room for development. But your conversation doesn't need to be Bryce or CJ, Bryce or CJ, Bryce or CJ. It's what if Bryce is our QB2? What is the drop-off between him and QB3? Exactly. What is the drop-off between CJ Stroud and Will Levis? What is the drop-off between the next QB before we go ahead and make that deal?
And that's the point. That's the 100% point. Like for us, it's you hope you get this guy a second, but for them, I agree with you. Like as far as like holding stuff against guys, like I could get you holding Bryce's size against him. Like, right. You can counter it. That's valid. Sure. Whatever. If you think that CJ didn't show instincts consistently throughout the year and didn't use his legs as much as he should, I think he admitted that. Although
he was open about it like twice at his pro day, he said it. And at the combine, he was like, dude, I know I could have been a better runner. I know I could have just, instead of letting throws go, I could have just taken off. Like he was very open about it.
He admitted it, but like when we start saying, well, this guy had this around him and that, like, were you saying that about Joey Burrow? Like, because Joey Burrow had as good of a squad around him as you can. Like, I don't think that's like valid. That's, between that and the Alabama, the Ohio State, like quarterbacks, like there's eventually something changes there. So
LSU's last number one quarterback was Jamarcus Russell. Are we really going to hold that against Joe Burrow? Like, and he also went to Ohio State. So there's the argument.
Yeah. So either way, like there's the debate is there, but at the end of the day, like it just doesn't matter as much. Where are you on Will Levis and Richardson if we are talking about 2 to 3 and 4?
Like, I see more potential in a guy like Richardson, and I don't think as of now, everyone who's talking about like he needs all this work, he needs all these other like tidbits, he's going to take a lot more time to develop. I don't think so. I just feel like right now what you have is you have to be okay with him having to learn the ropes. And you also have to be okay with him potentially being a guy that maybe doesn't pan out. I mean, we had this conversation last year, and I remember laughing my ass off. And I don't really, if ass is a bad word, I'm very sorry.
No, you're fine. You can go radio friendly here.
Like the dude, I remember when I saw mock drafts last year saying Malik Willis was going to pick number 2. And I was like, Malik Willis is nowhere near a first round pick. And everyone's like, well, what about Kenny Pickett? I'm like, Kenny Pickett is a first round pick because he's 24 years old. And if he doesn't pan out within like the next 2 years, then it's a done deal. Like, it's like the same thing with Hendon Hooker right now, where I actually thought Hendon Hooker would have been a first round pick if he didn't tear the ACL because the production was there. But like, you're either going to hit or you're not. It's kind of the same thing with like Malik Willis. Like, you have to give him time to develop, but everything is there for him to be a phenomenal quarterback. I feel like for Texans, and this is just my base understanding, I feel like for Texans right now, Will Levis would be their QB3. And there is a reason to like Will. I think that right now he's kind of getting the short end of the stick because of nobody seems to really care about what he is, and he has a little bit of an attitude issue and all these other little tidbits against him. But he's got a velocity of an arm. He's got a cannon of a howitzer. Like, the guy can sling the football. He's been in a pro-style offense for 2 years. So I do think that will translate to the NFL a lot faster. I think there's a lot more refinement to his game that you got to work on. But in terms of concepts that you like about him, there's a little bit more to where I think that he's pro-ready, at least where you can have that kind of conversation. I think that the biggest thing that I like about him is he's got good size. He's about 6'3". He's got good arm strength, incredible athleticism for a guy that looks like me. It's just like he can move and he can sling it, and he's got that physical trait that can run if you want him outside. There's a lot to really like about the positives of his game. There's just so much to also hate about his negatives of his game, and that's kind of where you are with a guy like Levis.
What'd you call his arm? A howitzer?
Howitzer.
Where does this come from?
I don't know. I heard it back in the 1940s.
I know what a howitzer is.
I mean, I do. 1940s radio voice. Got to bring that out. Come on, baby.
Howitzer. I like that.
Like that a lot. But he's got an arm that can sling it like crazy. I don't think it's Zach Wilson 2.0. I know there's going to be people out there that say it's Zach Wilson 2.0. It's not. But the things that you can like about him is that he can play through injury. He's one tough son of a gun. Like, it's really just his ability to stay in a pocket and be willing to take on hits is something that I can at least appreciate. I also think that you see a lot of positives in a Matthew Stafford type player. Like, if he's hitting on point, he can be Matthew Stafford. Great arm, extend plays deep outside the field. He's got that mental toughness. He's got that physical toughness. And I think that the other thing that you just really hate is that if he doesn't pan out that way, he's going to turn into Carson Wentz and be a turnover machine. His decision-making is askew at times. So it's a big hit or miss, but the traits that are positive about him, I think really are something that you can at least say is worth taking a risk on. Not at number 2, but you got to trade up and go get him.
That's always weird when that name comes up, because I've been focusing on like the quarterbacks post Andrew Luck that have gone top 5. That's kind of been like my new like case study for like good quarterbacks. And there's really only 3 that you would consider to be maybe franchise guys. Kyler's a maybe, and then Burrow and Lawrence. But
yeah, I mean, Tua if he stays healthy, but it's such a hit and miss at this point.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and you could put Tua on there too. So I don't want to disrespect what Tua was doing when he was healthy. So yeah, we can put Tua on there too. We can say 4. But when you say Carson Wentz, and there's a negative, outlook at it. Was it really that bad of a pick? I mean, you got MVP caliber play. I mean, they gave him another contract. He just kind of fell off a cliff after the Super Bowl. Carson Wentz is interesting because he did have MVP caliber play.
To be fair, and I've said this for a while, it never was about his physical game. It was mental for him the entire time. I felt like he had this connotation around him where it wasn't coddling, but it was, I was promised something. I did everything at the FCS level. Look at what I was able to produce. Look at the way that I was able to take these steps forward and prove that I was one of the best quarterbacks ever. And it felt like once he won the starting job, and you got to remember, Sam Bradford was on the roster. Sam Bradford, they traded because they liked him so much that they wanted to go ahead and play him right away. That once he saw Nick Foles win that Super Bowl, once he was an MVP candidate, once he was this guy that people believed could be an incredible player, and he ended up not getting the job. And then you hear on Twitter and social media, and it's one of those things where I immediately say, if you're an athlete, stay the hell off social media, because if people are going to talk mad crap about you, people are going to say everything possible to make you get mad. They want to see a reaction from you. Literally, that's why you see people dialing up, waiting for someone to get drafted and then post a tweet from 2014. Like, they do it on purpose. Wait. I felt like that's what it was with a guy like Carson Wentz. It never was physical. It was mental. And I think that might be a difference between Will Levis and Carson Wentz, or it may be the exact same thing.
It is the locker room here on YouTube. Got Cole Thompson here. Comments on the right. Subscribe, like. Do what you got to do. Tremato, I just put you in timeout for 5 minutes on the chat. One Davis Mills comment is enough, but that was like 4. So just 5 minutes. We'll see you. Go put your nose in the corner for 5 minutes. Enjoy the show, and then you can come back. I don't need to hear this.
Listen, guys, real fast. Just to remind you, even if they fail Davis Mills, they're moving off Davis Mills. It's done. I'm sorry. I know where you're coming from. I get it. It's Pep Hamilton. It's a limited roster. It doesn't change the fact that he's not the starter. You're not trusting General Mills anymore. The bit's done. We're
moving on from that. We're done with that. All right, let's talk about another rumor. And I don't even I do think that there needs to be context. Florio's not really always reporting things. A lot of times, and people have trouble separating, but he has opinions. He has very clear, blatant hit pieces. He has takes just to fire stuff up. And then he occasionally, because he is a connected guy, he'll have a report. And he reported. This was a report that the Patriots were shopping Mac Jones. Now, he threw out potential suitors, and that was maybe just trying to make sense of the report that they had thrown him out there. And among those teams, there was the Raiders, there was Tampa Bay, there was, who was the third? Raiders, Washington, and the Houston Texans. So Mac Jones rumors were in full effect. Let's just pretend these are valid. Let's pretend Mac Jones was on the market what would the case have been for Mac Jones? Because we've had the Jimmy Garoppolo discussion. I was talking about this today. The case for Mac Jones, or just the assessment of the possibility of Mac Jones, because they said that the Texans will say that they look into everything. I think naturally people think New England and think Caserio, but Caserio had nothing to do with Mac Jones.
Yeah.
So Caserio did not draft Mac Jones. Mac Jones got drafted when Caserio was already here. So there's not that connection. They're not running the same system like the Raiders do. So it's not a system thing. The only, the biggest thing for Mac Jones, and I think the people that would be most involved, or the person that would be most involved in this discussion, would have to be Bobby Slowick, I would think, because when San Francisco traded up to 3, they were thinking about Mac Jones, and I'm sure that they did as much homework as possible on Mac Jones, eventually ended up with Trey Lance. And I'm assuming that Bobby Slowick, the background he's from, the film guy, the offensive side of the ball guy, I'm assuming Bobby Slowick has a strong opinion on Mac Jones. Don't know what the opinion is, but I'm sure he has a pretty strong opinion on Mac Jones.
The thing with Mac Jones that has always worked for him in college, it worked for him in his rookie year, was the completion percentage. He wasn't a guy that was going to go ahead and get the ball 25, 30 yards down the field every single play. He wasn't a guy that was going to rely heavily on arm strength. He was going to rely on consistency. And consistency was his key in Alabama. And consistency was his key as a rookie. And that's one thing that you always look at in a Kyle Shanahan style of offense is consistency when it comes to completion percentage and when it comes to yards per attempt. They need to be able to hit the intermediate throws across the middle of the field. They need to be able to be a playmaker that's going to be able to stand in the pocket. And instead of trying to bail, they're going to be somebody that follows a script. They're going to be somebody that has a high completion percentage, really kind of be someone around that 7.3 to 7.8 yards per attempt and be able to thrive in the red zone. That is what you looked for, and that is what worked for Mac Jones. So if you think that Mac Jones could be that guy, and you definitely thought it if you were Kyle Shanahan, he came out and said the 2 names that we were down to were Mac Jones and Trey Lance. Different type of players, but a lot to like about what each of them provided. And the biggest thing was that I loved his completion percentage, his maturation in the pocket, and the ability to really connect across the middle of the field. If you feel like none of these quarterbacks can do that for you, it depends on what the asking price is, in my opinion. And I don't think that you're going to be able to get him for a 4th-round pick is what I would pay. The thing that I will say that's a positive is that he has 3 years left on his contract if you opt in on the 5th-year deal. Last year, he went to outside people because of they had a defensive coordinator calling offensive plays like a defensive coordinator would. They had a special teams coordinator helping out with offensive plays.
About that too.
Yeah.
You can see it on him.
But it's not even that. The funny thing was Brian Hoyer was asked about this not too long ago, and according to reports, I think it was Tom Curran in Boston, he also was pissed off at the offense. So it's not just it's Mac Jones being upset with the likes of how he's being treated, how the offense is running. It's straight up everybody in the system thought it was stupid. They thought the offense was terrible. And this is how Bill Belichick acts. And this is how Bill Belichick reacts to things. It's his way or the highway. He hires his friends. He believes in the system. And I think that that's something to where because of Mac went behind Bill's back, he just wants him out because if he doesn't listen to him, he doesn't follow what he believes is the Patriot way. I personally don't take Mac Jones. I think that there is a ceiling on Mac Jones. That ceiling.
Let's have the discussion this way then. Let's have the discussion this way. And let's kind of bring it back here.
Yeah.
All right. Let's pretend that the Texans decide they don't want to take a quarterback at 2. And they don't love any of these quarterbacks. And they're going to go stop. They're going to go stopgap. If we were having the discussion of Jimmy Garoppolo, Mac Jones, or someone on the roster, where will we be there?
I think Mac, just because of, I think that he's a little bit less injury prone. I think that I could get him for a 17-game season. I think that if it works for Jimmy Garoppolo, it would work for Bobby Slowick and Mac Jones. I think that if you give him an offensive coordinator, it would be fine. He didn't have a lot of weapons in New England. Like, they were dog crap for most of the time there, and yet he still found a way to finish with over 3,800 passing yards. I think that he would be a really intriguing fit, and you'd have those 3 years of eligibility on a rookie contract to where you could spend money where you wouldn't be able to do that with Jimmy G.
Hot take. I think if Mac Jones had been the pick at 3, he might have 1 or 2 Super Bowls. He might have one or two Super Bowls, and we might be sitting here talking about like him putting him on this type of pedestal. If he had gone to San Francisco instead of Lance, and he would have started 2 seasons ago and the season before, we might be talking about Mac Jones like he's some sort of hero. I think he would have probably 1 Super Bowl.
He would have played in the Super Bowl, I think. I think he would have at least gone to a Super Bowl. I don't know if he would have won it, but I think he would have played in one for sure.
Yeah,
so, but well, okay, let me ask you. Okay, I'll flip it for you. What's the most you'd be willing to give up
for Mac?
For Mac.
Now,
see, because there's the problem. Because if you don't want to give up something too much,
maybe a day 2 pick. We could talk about a day 2 type of thing, and maybe they would want to put something on it, like some sort of like Carson Wentz type thing where it could leap up, but like a day 2 pick. And again, if you're just tuning in, we're talking about this in relation to Jimmy Garoppolo. We're not talking about this as like do this instead of Bryce Young. We're just talking about this if hypothetically the Texans were weighing out Mac Jones or Jimmy Garoppolo. So
I'd be hesitantly willing to give up pick number 73, and that would be it. Like, I would literally give up pick number 73 and say 3rd round pick. Cool. There we go. Like that, just call it a day.
And then the Patriots would sign or would bring in Lamar.
Yep. And then they would make a deal. But at the same time, like, think about this for a second. Like, Lamar, like the offense at Alabama sucked. And the only reason it was good was because if you had Bryce Young back there. You think Lamar's running over to Bill Belichick? Come here, celebrate my career. Give me a big old hug. I love you, Bill. You think that's going to happen?
Wants to be somewhere at this point. I don't know.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, like if you threw Davis Mills into the deal just to sweeten and they have a quarterback with experience, cool. I mean, like you get a guy that maybe is a backup with a guy that's maybe a backup. Well, I mean, a guy that is a backup, and you give a 3rd round pick. But like, you would have to sell me that Bobby Slowick is all in on getting Mac Jones. He would have to be the deciding factor for me.
Yeah,
and then
he's got a hot take on him. I mean, whatever. He's an expert on him. Like we don't know what he thinks, but he's definitely as much of an expert on him as you could possibly be. Like there is zero doubt about that. I think Lamar needs to hire Drew Rosenhaus. Rosenhaus was on McAfee today. But man, Rosenhaus is like he's in form. He did like a sales pitch. Lamar needs to hire Rosenhaus. Let's get into it. People brought it up. The mock draft that broke Texans Twitter. Lance Zerline, NFL.com, put out a mock draft. The Texans took Tyree Wilson, number 2. And then they traded up to 7, and they got Will Levis. This was one of those wild mock drafts that I think people took a little bit too serious. I've followed Lance long enough to where I know what he thinks of mock drafts. Like he literally just says it's a path and it's a way to show like different lines of thinking and different possibilities and expect the unexpected. And then when he puts his final mock draft out, he tries to incorporate like some sort of prediction. But yeah, people who take mock drafts so serious are just crazy to me. Like it's fun. It's a path towards where a player ends up. It's not that serious. People were pretty upset about this though.
The draft's a crapshoot. Like it always is. You see a 3rd round pick become an all pro in 2 years and you see the number 1 pick end up being mid. Like that's what happened. God dang it, Patrick. God dang it, Bobby Wagner. But it happens every year, man. Like you see it. You watch players that don't pan out and then you see 6th round picks become stars. Like I remember having a conversation with the scout last year about Tariq Woolen. And I remember the scout telling me, we like him as a day 3 pick. And I said, I think right now he's probably one of the better cornerbacks because of his size. I go, well, he's going to have to be able to get something out of it. We're going to have to go to the right system. He's going to have to be able to be probably a backup and work his way up. And he became a stud. Like he immediately became one of the biggest X factors in the NFL. He became one of the better cornerbacks in zone coverage. And so it really does matter in scheme fit. I feel like this draft alone is one of those years where if you're not getting one of the 7 or 8 really talented players, one of the like best of the bunch players, and yes, that includes Bijan Robinson. No, I don't think the Texans will take him at 12, so I'll put that out there. But if you don't get those guys, you need to get scheme fit. You need to get guys that will work for your system, and there's a lot of players where they're so closely knit in type of play. I don't think you should be worrying about like what the hell happens. Like it's more so about getting the right players for what you have.
Yeah, it's a mock draft, man. Like
It's a mock draft, dude. Who cares?
Now, I do think Tannenbaum's getting a little out of control. It's one thing to say that, let's just like look at the picks themselves. Like I think we said this last time you were on. It wouldn't be crazy to watch someone take Tyree Wilson over Anderson. Like, I mean, I bet you if you ask 32 teams who they like better, most would probably say Anderson, but I would be willing to bet that there's some teams that might like Tyree Wilson more than Will Anderson.
I was told in Indianapolis, 2 teams were very much higher on Tyree Wilson than Will Anderson because of the scheme fit that they were running defensively made more sense for a Tyree Wilson than it did a Will Anderson, where Will was a player who was an outside linebacker that had a couple of reps with his hand in the line as a D lineman. You like him more so in a 3-4 defense, more so than a 4-3 defense. So depending on the team and the scheme fit, it wouldn't shock me. Now, there's going to be some teams that probably would covet a playmaker who went up against SEC offensive tackles and dominated the last 2 years. But same time, it's not going to shock me whatsoever if you see Tyree Wilson go before Will Anderson. I heard it in Indianapolis. Lance projected it in the mock draft. There's been other people who have projected it in mock drafts as well in the draft network. So it's not uncommon to see these type of conversations unfold.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could happen. Will Levis going in the 4 to 7 range is very realistic. He could end up going, 3. The possibility that I've seen the most that I thought was interesting, and Jeremiah was throwing it out there, was Tennessee trading up. That just seems to make a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. You're hopping a division opponent. You allow Will Levis some time to kind of learn behind Tannehill, and you avoid needing a quarterback next year. So I saw that was interesting. But I mean, like Mike Tannenbaum's putting Hooker at 5. Like Tannenbaum at this point is just playing around. Like he's just you can't even take him serious at this point with anything he says. But mock drafts, it's all good. It's not that
there's a difference of having a mock draft where you can understand where these point of emphasis come from and literally just saying something randomly stupid because you want to get the attention. And like that's kind of what it is with Hendon Hooker, 25 years old, who's coming off a torn ACL. Come on, man. And it's before Will Levis, and I think it was like Anthony Richardson was 1 pick before it. Come on.
Yeah. Mike Tannenbaum, not to be trusted. Not a big fan. Brown Chubby Bear asks, how much pressure do you think Nick is getting from Callan Hanna on doing what it takes to draft Bryce? I don't think there's pressure from him. I think that he probably feels the pressure on his own to probably find some sort of quarterback. I think he knows better than anyone that you need to find one. Callan Hanna, a little bit more involved probably in the coaching search, but I don't think they're like going to force him to take a quarterback.
I mean, I have been team Drake May, Caleb Williams for 2024 personally. I think that both of them are more projected starters. But again, we have no idea what's going to happen after this year because we said the same thing about Sam Howell and Spencer Rattler going into 2021. Oh, they were going to be superstars. Oh, they were going to be great. Oh, they're going to be, can't miss players for the Texans, for the Commanders, for all these teams. And one was a 5th round pick and one still is in college. So you can't bet on that. But you are Nick Caserio, who has 11 wins as a GM, and you don't really have to worry about what happened with the likes of Davis Mills because he's a 3rd round pick. 3rd round picks are a dime a dozen success. You can't walk out of this draft without a quarterback. Now, if you feel confident to where Levis or Richardson might be available at pick number 7, the Raiders want to move down because if they really like a cornerback, they really like a right tackle. In Lance's mock, this is actually something I could see where the Raiders do move down because they do need a right tackle. And Darnell Wright, to me, is one of these guys who is an immediate plug-and-play right tackle. But I don't know if it's with Houston, but I could see it is with a quarterback. So that would make a lot of sense. I also just think right now, Caserio knows I have to get a quarterback for this franchise. I gave up a franchise quarterback. I got 3 first-round picks added to it. I have 6 first-round picks. I didn't use one last year. I don't know what the quarterbacks are going to be like. And right now, I am not the most well-liked person, even with a decent free agency class. So he's got to at least target someone. I don't know if that means it has to be Bryce Young.
I'm impressed with the Cole Thompson like peripheral vision where you're talking and then wifey's behind you, so you're like trying to cover up wifey's head. I don't think I didn't. I can notice you as a guy who can multitask. I can respect that those moves right there.
She's not properly dressed right now, so it's like I got to make sure that nobody sees what's going on behind me.
Are the Texans going to draft Jackson Smith and Jigba at 12? I think let's rephrase it. Is Jackson Smith and Jigba going to be there at 12?
I think it's a toss-up right now. I could see a team trading up to go get him. I could see a team potential. Here, a perfect example of this. I think the biggest need, if they let him go, for Arizona is going to be a wide receiver. So if Arizona were to move down to pick number 11,
Nuke go?
If they let Nuke go, and that could be they just release him, but they let Nuke go, they could move down to 11 and justifiably take Jackson Smith and Jigba one pick before the Texans, very similar to Jameson Williams last year. And I think that if they aren't going with a guy like a cornerback, which I think is a very big priority for any Jonathan Gannon defense. And this is a very good cornerback class to where they could still get a playmaker at the top of round 2. If they don't go that way, I could see Njigba go right off at pick number 11. I absolutely could see that happen. So it really is, does somebody move up? Do the Bears want to go ahead and get that college connection with Justin Fields? Does Philadelphia just want to go ahead and say, screw it, we're going to go ahead and build a 3-man monster for Jalen Hurts? Like,
come on.
Dude, is it really going to shock you if you see Philadelphia just waste 10? Like, because they have the extra first.
I would be surprised. I think if they're going to go that direction, I think they would go Bijan. If they're going to, try to build like an arsenal.
I just think they should go offensive lineman. I think they should go Peter Skoronski and just build that line and never let Jalen Hurts get hit. Like, that's what I would do.
If you're a Jackson Smith and Jigba guy for the Texans, I think there's one thing that I think needs to happen to where I think it helps you a little bit. And that's Carter going before 10. Yeah. Because there are some people that think that Philadelphia is going to take Carter if he falls there. I don't know if that's true or not. But if Carter goes before 10, then I think that you could maybe trade from 12 to 10 if you're the Texans, because you have traded with Philadelphia before. And Philadelphia has been known to they've been known to be willing to move there. The price for that is a third, I think, because the same thing happened when Dallas was in front of the Giants and the Eagles at 10 and 12. They traded back and got Micah Parsons. They decided they were going to let the Eagles have Devontae Smith instead of the Giants. And then after that, the Giants traded out because they were going to take Devontae Smith. So I could see a scenario where Philadelphia might be willing to take Bijan Robinson, but they know he's not going to go to Tennessee. Although who knows, Tennessee might surprise some people, end up trading Derrick Henry. So that might be too risky. But I think the possibility of trading with Philadelphia is something that I could see happening with the Texans. But people seem to believe that there's some sort of deal that Carter has to where he's not falling out of 10.
I think he knows it. I think everyone in the building knows it. Chicago, from what I've heard, really does like him. I think that Philadelphia really likes him.
Great.
So there's an opportunity.
Chicago, and you probably had him number 1 on your board or number 2 or something before all this stuff happened, and then you trade back and get all that stuff, and you end up getting him anyways. Yeah,
because the trade happened for number 1 after the combine. So they already were like, oh crap, we can move down and still get the guy that we wanted to target at 3 because we were going to make a trade up with Indianapolis. They could do that and still get their guy. So it's I could see it. I don't think you would have the conversation of not having Jackson Smith and Jigba at 12. I have been preaching one other name if you do stay at 12.
Okay.
And
let's hear it.
I really like Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State opposite of Derek Stingley for years.
Corner? I think it's out there. Now, how many corners do you have going before him? Now, are you taking him over Gonzalez?
He's my number 1 corner.
Okay, so there you go.
So he's my number 1.
So he's your top guy.
So he's my top guy. He's physical. He plays extremely well in man press. 6'2" frame. NFL pedigree. Dad played in the NFL for years.
I just like his pops.
Yeah. Everything about him screams alpha dog mentality. Get in my face. Watch what happens. You're not going to like the outcome. The crazy thing is that he's not going to be a big interception guy. He never has been. He gets a little handsy at times, but he makes plays on the football. He breaks up a lot of passes. He's able to go ahead and mirror receivers. He throws receivers off their route tree. He makes sure that they absolutely are going to have to do a misdirection at times. And I think what's going to be really interesting is that you look at the way that DeMeco Ryans' defense played in San Francisco in the second half of games. They lined up a lot of press man coverage, and they tried to physically beat the living dog crap out of you at the line of scrimmage. They wanted you to know you are going to win one way, and it is going up against our run defense. And if you can't work it against the run, you're not going to be able to work it against the pass either. We're going to suffocate you. You put Joey Porter Jr. And again, like, I know that Steven Nelson had a phenomenal year last year. He's 30 years old. Cornerbacks at a certain point start to lose a little bit of pop. They move to safety after they get to a certain age. If you want to keep them around, maybe you can do that. Maybe if you want to go ahead and fight for reps inside the nickel, that can be fine. Like, whatever you want to do with that. But imagine saying to yourself, we could go ahead and have Derek Stingley Jr. cover the number one wide receiver on every single team in the AFC. So Jamar Chase is blanketed by a guy in Derek Stingley, who we think has a lot of upside to be able to do everything. And then we're going to go ahead and say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go ahead and take away your number 2 receiver to where literally if Jalen Petrie or Jimmy Ward can go ahead and cover a tight end, the other one can cover a slot receiver. You get a good cover linebacker in there. We are blanketing you every single way possible. And this is going to be the case for the next 4 years because of you have him on a rookie deal. You still have Derek Stingley on another 4 years of a rookie deal. You still have Jalen Petrie on 3 years of a deal. I just feel like right now, where you are playing this defense, and again, you have 2 guys that really thrive in man coverage, an area of expertise for DeMeco Ryans. If you have really good substantial cornerback play, the best way to be able to get your pass rush to effectively pressure the quarterback is by making sure that they go ahead and have elite coverage downfield.
And I just think it's a chess move because I'm a big fan of chess moves where you're not trying to necessarily fill the best roster possible this year. You're trying to fill the best roster for like 2 years from now, 3 years from now. And
that's what smart teams do. And I don't know why.
If they don't do it, Cole, like 11 months from now, we're going to be saying how bad they need corners. Because Steven Nelson's going to be a free agent. You just mentioned his age. Desmond King's going to be a free, all these guys that you've had, they're older and they're going to be there. So it's like, if they feel the way you do now, if they don't feel the way you do and they have Witherspoon and they have Gonzalez ahead and those 2 guys go, I don't know that it's like enough to where you say, all right, we're going to get our 3rd corner, depending on how much you like him and how he compares to everyone else. But if they feel the way you do, and whether it's Porter, whether it's Gonzalez, whether it's Witherspoon, and that number 1 corner's there, I mean, it's either do it now while it falls into your lap or just cross your fingers next year and hope, because you're going to have to figure it out. And you damn sure don't want to pay corners in free agency, at least like good ones. You want to get that's usually pretty expensive. So I like where your head's at there.
It goes back to remember when Atlanta was potentially getting Deshaun Watson. Everyone's like, okay, well, who would be the proven player if they were able to get it? And everyone's like, you have to make it AJ Terrell. You have to be able to get yourself a bona fide corner that's going to be on a cost-friendly deal, because eventually you're going to have to substantially pay for the position because if it is a premier position at this point. And AJ
said, and Nick said that they discussed that because he said that he worked with Mulligetta. He said it on 610. He talked to Mulligetta about one of his about a potential trade for a corner, kind of slipped that up.
So again, they have
it could only be AJ or it could be JC Horn. So it was one of those 2.
And again, I had JC Horn ranked as high as Pat Surtain coming out of college because of that alpha dog physicality. Go ahead and shut me up, and if you can't do that, then go ahead and watch what happens. There's just some bit of just dog in these in cornerbacks that you can't replace, and I feel like that. In a wide receiver class where I personally don't see much of a separation between wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 7, I do like the pass rushers such as a Nolan Smith if you have to be able to trade up at the end of round 1, a Felix Anduki-Uzama at the start of round 2, a Keon White from Georgia Tech. You can still get those guys at, say, 33, or if you were to go ahead and do the same type of deal where you move back up as you did a couple years ago, you do that, I still feel like you can get that type of premier player at a position where I don't know you'll get that at cornerback. And again, you have to have that conversation where if you played an AFC South that features Calvin Ridley, features Christian Kirk, features Michael Pittman Jr., they don't have a number 2 receiver right now in Indianapolis. They don't have really good, consistent receivers in Tennessee. Treylon Burks is like a hopeful guy. Maybe he'll pan out. Maybe he won't. What are you going to do when you just say, oh, run the football on us? And by the way, we have a defense where our defensive coach literally had one of the best run defenses in the NFL. So it's a chess game. And I feel like that I really do like the likes of every single cornerback at the top. I like Devin Witherspoon a lot. I really do like Christian Gonzalez. I just feel like that for this defense, Joey Porter Jr. would be the selection at number 12, or you go ahead and you try and trade back to then make another pick.
Yeah, it's an adjustment type of thing. Jay Sosa asks, were you a Stingley or a Sauce guy? Honestly, I was a Stingley guy. I don't really, I mean, it's documented. So I was a Stingley guy. I still like Stingley. I want to see how Stingley looks in the exact same system. It's hard to argue with what Sauce did last year, but yeah, I was definitely a Stingley guy.
I had Sauce as my number 1 player in the NFL draft last year.
So there you go.
So I had Sauce, but again, Sauce would not have the same type of production that he had in New York in last year's defense.
No. In Houston, he's not an all-pro in Houston. So I mean, that's where we're really going to get the fair assessment. Yeah, I want to. Yeah, and Stingley, who knows what we'd be saying about Stingley if he'd gone to the Jets, like how he would have looked. So
absolutely,
yeah, and that's a lot of it. It's about the situation. Dave asks, what will you do if the Texans select CJ Stroud? I mean, I won't be ticked. I'm a Bryce guy, but I wouldn't be livid. I'm not like pumped about it, but I'd be fine.
Dave, let me ask you, are you saying what if they select CJ Stroud and Bryce is on the board, or is Bryce off the board and you need a quarterback and there you go? Because you can't be pissed about it if he's gone.
Nah. He's talking because he knows I'm a Bryce guy. J.O. says he thinks there's a real chance the Texans select Anthony Richardson at 2 if Bryce Young is selected at 1. I don't. Maybe you know something I don't. I would be surprised. I'll put it that way. I would be surprised if they did that.
I would think Will Levis if a trade up into the top 10 is more plausible at this point than I think Anthony Richardson at 2.
So you basically said Lance's mock draft makes more sense than that, J.O.
With that, I don't agree with Tyree Wilson. I think that Will Anderson is the best player in this year's draft, far and above everyone else. So that's why I had that conversation. But I do think of the 2, yeah, I would probably say Richardson not being at 2, whether Levis being at 7 is probably it.
Someone's talking about JSN and Gibbs. Don't threaten me with a good time. I'm a running back guy, so I could definitely go down with that. I had a hypothetical today. This is something that would only come up on my show where we spend probably 7 minutes arguing about the Texans hypothetically selecting CJ Stroud.
Okay.
CJ Stroud wanting to wear his number that he had at Ohio State.
Oh, I love this.
Which is 7. Does Ka'imi Fairbairn, who's the second leading scorer in Texans history, who has rocked number 7 for nearly a decade, going to be his 9th season, does Ka'imi Fairbairn have to just come off 7? No questions asked for CJ Stroud.
No. He doesn't have to come off 7. I mean, don't get me wrong. You could see an opportunity.
There's a lot of pressure, but I do think just assuming little Ka'imi has to give up the number, I think that's a little bit much.
To have to give up the number or like get paid to give up the number? Because like
better pay. I think CJ better pay.
Better pay a lot. Because like the thing that I know is like every single year it's like, all right, who's this new player? Who's like, oh, there's Ka'imi at number 7. Like when you go into camp, you know he's there, but like you can't let him just take the number and then be like, oh, we're gonna cut you if you don't. All right, cut me then. Like I'm not giving up the number for free. I saw an argument. I saw an argument.
Jordan, you got to give up 9.
I think that's fair.
But
I think
you got to give up 9.
I think he would. But I saw an argument between you and Crumpler earlier today.
Crumpler said CJ should rock 0, which I think would be sick.
I have a thought process, and I'm sorry about this. Only fat guys. Fat guys are the only guys that should wear 0. Big fat guys are the only guys that should wear 0 because they get 0 F's about it.
A lot of people talking about Overshown. Overshown rock 0. It looked pretty good on him.
I'm not gonna lie. The Armband Bandit looked good in 0. I liked him in 0. I personally think that just fat guys should wear 0. That's just my opinion.
There's some beasts that rocked 0. Didn't Gonzalez rock 0 at Oregon? Am I mistaken?
No, he rocked 0 at Oregon. Yeah, he did.
And then
Anaya Smith at Texas A&M, Mr. Everything does wear 0. There's another player that's really damn good that wears 0.
Darnell Washington.
Washington was okay. Washington does not count. Washington is a big
looked great in 0. Washington looked awesome in 0. Makes him look even more badass than he already does.
And again, like this, that would have been probably a tight end I would have targeted somewhere around like pick 33, and I would have let him warn 0. Like, because he gives 0 Fs about anyone. He is literally going to beat the living dog crap out of you.
Yes.
I would be okay with him wearing 0. Ja'Tavion Sanders at Texas wears 0, and if they don't
straight out of Denton, him and Overshown both rock 0. Straight out of Denton, baby.
If they don't keep Schultz in the offseason and Sanders has this similar year, I would very much like to see him come to Houston and rock 0.
I think he's going to come in looking huge. He's already put on a little bit of weight.
He is yeet this year. He looks big. He's
going to be even bigger this next year.
And if he keeps his route running up, dude, game changer for Texas.
Oh, yeah, he's straight. The quarterback play improving wouldn't hurt him either. So
probably not.
Yeah, it'll be interesting though. I'm just ready for it to get here. I'm enjoying all the dialogue. I'm enjoying all the chatter. I just like, it's just nice because people seem genuinely to be in a better mood right now. I mean, like, it just seems to be like a better mood around here when it comes to talking about the Texans for the most part.
It's a better mood, number one, but it's also a mood of where I think that they realize, okay, we're going to be positive. We're going to give this a shot. It's like, hey, we're not just running it out with the fourth option who at the buzzer ended up getting the head coaching job. We're not just getting D+, C- type free agents. Let's just, if we go 7-10 this year, okay, well, we haven't gotten 7 wins combined, and really, we've gotten 7 wins combined the last 2 years. That's a huge improvement. Let's just see where we go. Let's just see what we do. Let's just see what could be done to get this team better. And again, it's like the transfer portal. You have 15 days after spring football to go ahead and enter or leave. You got like 21 days after the NFL draft to go ahead and sign other players that you didn't get in the likes of the draft. So be positive. I mean, it's like there's optimism, there's criticism, but there's optimism. And I think that it's better to say that there's optimism instead of just optimism and criticism. I mean, just criticism like we did last year.
Yeah. And then, I mean, it's fun, man. It's all good. And got a draft. I know that's your favorite time of the year. It's one of my favorite times of the year. And you got it, man. I appreciate you for hopping on, man. I know you got the late. Do you consider it a late show or early show?
I'm doing an all-nighter tonight, so it's like, I'm going to catch up on the Clippers-Lakers game because that'll probably be one of the things I lead off with. So I guess it's like I guess it would be a nightly show today for me, but most days I consider it an early show since like I'm like the last thing you hear on the ESPN outlets that don't have local programming.
So a little Clippers-Lakers, huh? Okay.
Yeah, listen, I think both are going to get blown out once they get into the playoffs, but who's going to get the team that doesn't have to play in the playing game? That's what I look for.
It's going to be fun, man. I appreciate you, man. Thanks very much. Sure, I'll talk to you before the draft. Keep doing your thing, man. Good moves today, too. Going side to side.
I think I lost you.
Protected. Appreciate you, man. There you go. Cole Thompson joining the locker room. The man, Mr. Cole Thompson. Follow him on Twitter. Hell of a lot of information at Mr. Cole Thompson on Twitter. You can follow along with him. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Subscribe, like. Easter is almost here. We got a little Good Friday action. Tomorrow marks the 3-week countdown for the draft. So that's going to be fun. And I appreciate everyone for joining. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Appreciate all of the comments, except the Davis Mills stuff. Let's just keep that on the sidelines. Just like Davis Mills belongs on the sidelines, let's keep the Davis Mills stuff at the side on the sidelines. A lot of people talking about running backs. You know me, I'm a running back guy. I might actually put out a video on the disrespect that running backs have been getting. Appreciate everyone for coming through. Appreciate everyone for subscribing, liking, listening to Sports Radio 610 in the Odyssey app. And remember, when it comes to this Texans game, thanks to Cole for stopping through. When it comes to this, just remember, we are all in this together. Have a good one, peeps.